A community shaken after a terrifying incident at a mosque in Markham.
It's one thing to come to the mosque and be verbally offensive. It's quite another to use your car to try to strike someone down.
What we've learned about the suspected hate crime and the accused now in police custody. Plus,
it is extremely difficult to hear about pets being separated from their families.
do you know Max? The Toronto Humane Society is searching for his owner after he was abandoned with a note. They aren't looking to punish the owner, they want to help. And it's Easter Sunday with family-friendly celebrations taking over the beaches in Toronto.
This is CBC Late Night News.
Thanks for joining us. It was a terrifying ordeal for members of a Markham mosque. A man is in custody tonight facing charges in a suspected hate crime. Police say he allegedly drove his car directly at a worshiper. Clara Pasica spent the day at the mosque talking with the community about what they heard and saw, and also the lasting impact incidents like these can have.
Community members at the Islamic Society of Markham say they're shaken after a disturbing incident that happened early Thursday morning, near the time some had come to say their first prayer of the day. York Regional Police say they responded to a call just before 7 a.m. Witnesses saw a man arrive in a vehicle and drive directly at one of the worshippers. In a statement, the mosque says the man then went inside and it's believed he grabbed a copy of the Quran. He also yelled threats and religious slurs at worshippers. The suspect then drove dangerously in the parking lot before leaving. This is one of the oldest and largest Muslim institutions in Markham. Thousands of people regularly attend here. Members of the mosque say they're horrified at what's happened, especially during the holy month of Ramadan, when the mosque is even busier.
This has left us speechless and shocked that how can something happen this in Markham, where we live, because little children, women, all of them come to pray here. And it's the month of Ramadan, and Ramadan is a blessed month, so we're very shocked.
It's one thing to come to the mosque and be verbally offensive. It's quite another to use your car to try to strike someone down. I can't wish that for anybody. So yeah, definitely people are feeling upset. They're feeling a little bit vulnerable.
There's a lot of children who walk here, elderly who walk to the mosque. So we're certainly, a little disturbed, a little nervous, and we're being vigilant at the moment. Certainly, this kind of incidents and these kinds of things do not certainly belong here in Markham or frankly anywhere in Canada.
Investigators, including members of the hate crime unit, worked to identify and arrest 28-year-old Sharon Karen of Toronto. He's facing several charges and remains in custody. He's expected back in court Tuesday. Meantime, the mosque is saying that its congregation is a strong and loving community. Its security is taking additional steps to ensure that everyone is safe in the last days of Ramadan. Clara Pasica, CBC News, Markham.
The reaction has been coming in all day, swift and strong. The mayor of Markham is condemning what he calls this act of hatred. We're also hearing from the National Canadian Council of Muslims. In a tweet, the group says, "We've been greatly distressed to learn about an apparent violent hate crime at a Markham mosque." A spokesperson telling us tonight members from the council will join the mosque community in Markham tomorrow for a press conference. We'll be tracking the latest for you online and on CBC Toronto. Well, an 18-year-old woman is facing murder charges in connection with a deadly shooting last year. It happened back on December 6th. Police got a call about a shooting at an apartment near Lawrence Avenue East and Orton Park Road. A 20-year-old man was found inside. He was taken to hospital but died days later. Brianna Warner was arrested yesterday and charged with first-degree murder. To Thunder Bay next, where a new report is expected about the local police force after a growing number of human rights complaints were filed by current and former officers. In September, an expert panel released an interim report that made several recommendations, including appointing a new police chief. The force announced last month Darcy Fleury will take the job. Fleury has told CBC one of his priorities will be to rebuild trust. He starts a one-month transition period later this month before officially taking over May 15th. A call for help from the Toronto Humane Society. They're looking for the owner of a dog who was abandoned earlier this week. As Greg Ross shows us, they're not looking to punish the owner. They want to help.
Look at you.
This is Max, a healthy 3-year-old dog currently in the care of the Toronto Humane Society.
Max came into us about a week ago, accompanied by the note with his kind of backstory.
Max's owner left this note with some info and an explanation. It says they lost their job and apartment and could no longer take care of him. It also says he's a good boy.
And the story about his owner and kind of the tough time that they were going through prior to coming in, which is really unfortunate, I think, for Max and the owner. But it is the sad reality for a lot of the animals that end up at our doors almost every day.
Max was left along with that note in this parkette on Primrose Avenue near Davenport on Monday. What his owner may not have known at the time is that the Humane Society has a program to help pet owners who are going through tough times. It's called the Urgent Care Program.
What we have been trying to do over the last few years is open up new programs and new opportunities for individuals so that they have options other than surrender. Trying to find temporary shelter for pets with owners who are going through temporary crisis, and whether they're fleeing interpersonal violence, if they're experiencing, temporary housing instability.
Bye-bye.
The Humane Society will put dogs like Max into a temporary foster home until the owner is ready to take them back. Christina Pierre is one of the volunteers that fosters dogs for the Humane Society.
And it can happen to anybody. Like, people lose their jobs and you don't know what you'll do in that situation until you're actually in it. Like, you can talk all you want, but it's different when it's actually happening to you.
The Humane Society says cases like this are on the rise.
Last year, we had just over 300 animals cared for through our urgent care program. This year, kind of January until today, more or less, we've brought in about 100. So we're seeing roughly a 30% increase already this year over last year.
The Humane Society would like to offer urgent care service to the owner of Max in hopes of one day reuniting him with his family. The Humane Society is also currently looking for more volunteers to foster animals. Information about the urgent care program can be found on their website. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
Starting Tuesday, personal support workers will be allowed to administer medications to long-term care residents. Some healthcare workers are worried, though, that will add more responsibility onto an already overburdened workforce.
It's not something we can or will support because simply the conditions for PSWs are not there to succeed. And we believe that the right approach to it is to increase the number of RNs and RPNs in nursing homes.
The proposed changes were submitted on February 3rd. PSWs who've received training in drug administration will be allowed to provide long-term care residents with non-controlled medications, so things like Tylenol and other meds for common illnesses such as high blood pressure and diabetes. PSWs began temporarily administering certain medications in April 2022 under the Fixing Long-Term Care Act. Now that provision is set to expire this Tuesday. Syphilis cases in babies are soaring in many parts of the world, including our country. As Ithil Musa shows us, Health Canada has approved a new rapid test that allows for early detection and treatment.
It's not just on the rise, it's out of control.
Medical experts are alarmed at the soaring number of Canadian babies being born with syphilis. Syphilis cases are on the rise around the world, but among wealthy countries, Canada is seeing unusually dramatic growth. In 2021, cases of congenital syphilis were 13 times what they were in 2017, with prairie provinces experiencing the highest increases.
It's happening in communities where they're not getting tested and they're not getting access to the treatments.
Researcher Sean Rourke says Indigenous communities are particularly vulnerable.
We can't expect our healthcare system to work when people have to come in and they face these barriers of racism and structural, health inequities.
Wandell Windigo doesn't have syphilis, but she knows how challenging it can be for Indigenous people to get medical treatment. During her high-risk pregnancy, she would travel for hours to get prenatal care.
Sometimes some of my appointments were like 4 hours long. So to sit for 4 hours, then to travel home, that's a full 8-hour day.
That limited access is helping drive the outbreak in babies. But a new rapid test could change that. Health Canada has just approved a dual HIV syphilis test that detects the disease within a minute, allowing health providers to begin treatment right away.
Something that really opens the door to opportunities for people who are not coming forward.
Health Canada says epidemiologists have also been dispatched to assist provinces in containing the disease. Idil Musa, CBC News, Toronto.
Tens of thousands of Quebecers are spending yet another night without power, 5 nights after Wednesday's ice storm. There is growing concern about a lurking danger, carbon monoxide poisoning. As David Thurton shows us, some people still in the dark are trying to find ways to stay warm, and it's proving dangerous.
Days after an ice storm caused chaos and damage, communities are still recovering.
People are very frustrated right now, angered at the situation. It's now 4 days, and probably will be another day before we have power in Beaconsfield.
Hydro-Quebec says it reconnected almost 200,000 homes Saturday. Still, thousands of customers are entering their 5th night without electricity in the Outaouais, Montérégie, Laval, and Montreal.
We still have a full workforce in the field today, so more than 1,500 people.
For those customers, it's been days without charged cell phones or power to cook. Food has spoiled, so the Quebec government allowed some supermarkets to open on Easter Sunday. But no power also means no heat, and that's leading some to make dangerous choices. Over the last couple of days, there's been a spike in carbon monoxide poisonings.
The situations we're seeing are people heating inside their homes with charcoal grills or camping stoves, and that's really totally preventable.
A 75-year-old Quebec man died Friday after using a generator in his garage. Just in the Montreal area alone, 180 residents have been treated or assessed. What Montreal Public Health says is a decade's worth of cases in just a few days.
And it's a concern here in Ottawa, too. 11 people from one family were hospitalized after burning a charcoal barbecue in their home.
The problem with carbon monoxide is that gas that's what we call the silent killer. You cannot smell it, you cannot taste it, you can't even see it.
As the cleanup continues, some are calling for policymakers and utilities to make the system more resilient.
There's no doubt that we're going to have to rethink the whole model.
With storms as fierce as Wednesday's expected to become more frequent. David Thurton, CBC News, Ottawa.
Sophia joins us now. When you look at the scope of the damage, you kind of go, okay, you can see why it's taking so long, but certainly frustrating for all the cleanup.
And the numbers were incredible as well. Over 1 million at a peak, still tens of thousands without power now. 10 hours of ice buildup, and of course that double whammy of the potent winds as well. Shannon, another chilly night on tap for many of you and your friends and family in parts of southern Quebec, but pleasant spring temperatures will be here for the cleanup and recovery efforts come Monday. And it's safe to say that it's been a while for many of us in the southern Great Lakes Basin since we've had a break from the dark and gloomy and cold temperatures, but that break begins now, not only for a short-range stretch, but a long-range stretch of 7 days of dry and sunny weather with multiple days of 20-degree warmth. The patio season will be here, luckily, and it's actually one of the driest stretches we've had since June of 2022. We have some lofty goals we've set in our forecast department. The mid-20s club will be here for many of you in the south. We've even got a 20-degree day on tap for many in Sault Ste. Marie this upcoming work week. Now, coming up in the long range, I'll tell you a little bit more about how the lakes have a bit of a trick up their sleeves, how you'll need a sweater along any of the lake shores for many of these warm weather days. But just a few minutes inland, you'll be in shorts and t-shirts. Who will the warm communities be, and who will be the ones that'll still be kind of in eerie spring-like weather? I'll tell you about that in the long range. We'll also talk a little bit about the forecast for the Jays home opener and these temperature anomalies The plus 10 or plus 12 degrees above the norm sound pretty good for communities like Hamilton Mountain, London, and Windsor. So we'll have all of that in the long range, and I'll let you know when maybe the cold weather is back in store, Shannon.
Okay, thanks, Sophia. We'll see you shortly.
Sounds good.
An Easter parade in Toronto brought out marching bands, stilt walkers, and plenty of great costumes. There were about 60 floats, saving the Easter Bunny for the big finale. And overseas, okay, we have some potentially bad news for theater fans. Broadway shows on tour across North America could come to an end tomorrow. The Actors Equity Association, which represents more than 50,000 actors and stage managers, has authorized a strike of all Broadway national tours. This comes as talks between the union and the Broadway League have hit a standstill.
We hate canceling performances, but in this moment, if that's what it takes for us to have a contract that is humane and actually makes living on the road sustainable and possible, it's what we have to do.
The union is fighting for increases in per diem payments to cover housing and food costs when its members are on the road. The negotiations between the two organizations began in January and are set to resume on April 11th and 12th. That's when we could learn if a strike will go ahead. If the union does follow through with strike action, Broadway tours, including Hamilton in Toronto, will be impacted. CBC Toronto reached out to the Broadway League, but they declined to comment on the matter. Well, to an exhibit next underway in Toronto that explores the city's neighborhoods and what they say about who we are.
I learned through this exhibit that I think the city has identified 154 neighborhoods in Toronto, which is a lot. That's a number I hadn't heard before.
Curators narrowed that list down to just 10 neighborhoods for the 10 of Toronto exhibit. Each is connected to a theme, from landscape to immigration. There's also a section dedicated to several Indigenous groups. Toronto gets its name from the passage of the Humber River, referred to as Takaranto.
To understand that Indigenous people have always been here. We've lived in all these neighborhoods, even though they have different names now. We have been here, and also all of our relations have been here. And to really think about that reality that I think people don't dive into. It's, you know, this place has always been named this, or it's been named that, and that's where my ancestors have lived, but we don't go beyond that. And that's one of the things that I really hope to express in this exhibit, is to really push people to think beyond that boundary.
The exhibit is on now until the end of the month. Welcome back. It may only be April, but the countdown is on for the Toronto Caribbean Carnival. Last night saw a big costume reveal and band launch party, and our cameras were there.
We're here tonight celebrating one of our many cultural festivals that we have over the summertime. This is Toronto Carnival. I've been doing this now for over 20 years. This year my theme is called It's Showtime. You can see these beautiful volunteers, beautiful helpers, beautiful friends of mine that are contributing to portraying my theme, which are basically the movies. And I support the Toronto Revelers. That's the name of my band, or my float. And we're very excited about what's about to happen tonight.
I feel like every year is different. The theme, the costumes, what they put into it, everything is different, and it's a surprise, and it's always a blessing to be a part of.
Everyone coming together to spread our culture, and it's an amazing experience.
Obviously, this year is already bigger and better than last year. Has so many more people. We are enjoying ourselves, putting this all together. And I think this year, the expression of the carnival will really be showcased in Toronto.
If that doesn't say summer, I don't know what does. It is the ultimate party every summer in Toronto, for sure.
Oh, it has me hopeful to shed all of the jackets and all of the layers and turn up the heat and the forecast as well, which is what we'll be doing this upcoming work week. But I preface it by saying we're not even at the end of April yet, and things could, well, turn for the worse anytime when it comes to cold weather. A little bit chilly still into the overnight period tonight, but then a lovely short range. And let's set the scene here, folks. We're coming out of technically the darkest winter we've had in 76 years with all of the gray cloud cover and gloom that we've experienced. So the start of real warmth is very welcome here. Not only a 7-day stretch of dry and sun, but especially warmer the more inland and the more south you go. Multiple days of 20-degree warmth in places like Windsor and Hamilton, especially Hamilton Mountain and London, that will be basking in June-like weather really for much of this upcoming work week. It's this big ridge of high pressure that will be making a cross-country tour, and it really sets up shop midweek for us in parts of southern Ontario. But we mentioned the lakes are acting a bit like ice cubes this time of year. So you could be in downtown or at Pearson and be in the mid-20s, but then you'll go to Scarborough Bluffs and you'll need a sweater, and that goes for the Niagara Lake shores as well, along the Erie shorelines. But anywhere inland, just a few kilometers away, could be a 5 to 10 degree difference. Here's how it all shapes up over the next couple days. A little bit of cloud cover in the high teens for Monday. Pleasant May-like temperatures for the home opener on Tuesday, more sunshine. Things get turned up a notch for Wednesday. And then Thursday is when that warmth really comes in with the mid-20s and sticks around for those of you in the nation's capital region. So patio season is officially here. We're calling it, Shannon.
All right, I think I understand now why I've been so grumpy. The darkest winter in 76
years.
Wow.
Unbelievable. It felt like it, didn't it?
Yeah, it sure did. So bring on the sunshine. Thanks, Sophia. That is our show for you tonight. We'll see you again next weekend.